Imagine waking up one ordinary morning, ready to rush out to work and finding a vehicle, purposely blocking your driveway. Not just any vehicle, the polished silver SUV of the self-appointed sovereign of our little HOA kingdom. Her name was Karen, and she carried that crown like it suited her. To Karen, every fence post, every garden gnome, even the exact hue of a mailbox was subject to her decree. But that morning, when I saw her SUV stretched across my driveway like a barricade, I knew something had changed. I stepped outside, coffee still in hand, and just stared. She hadn't parked slightly askew. Her truck was positioned diagonally, perfectly placed to make reversing impossible. At first, I told myself she'd made a careless mistake. Maybe a visitor. Perhaps she didn't notice, but I already suspected otherwise. This was deliberate, a power move. Sure enough, Karen emerged from her house a minute later. Oversized shades, clipboard tucked under her arm like a badge of office. No apology. Instead, she flashed that smug smile and said, "Maybe now you'll start showing up to HOA meetings like the rest of us." That's when it sank in. She wasn't merely obstructing my car. She was attempting to control me. You see, I wasn't even part of her HOA. My property existed just outside their jurisdiction, grandfathered in long before the association formed. And that infuriated Karen. She couldn't stand that I escaped their rules, couldn't find me for not trimming my lawn the exact HOA-approved way, or force my mailbox into their uniform design. She'd been nagging me for months. Passive-aggressive notes, thinly veiled threats. And now she'd escalated to physically preventing me from leaving my own home. I called her out right there in the driveway. "Move your car, Karen, I have to go." She cocked her head as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Not until you agree to join the HOA. Everyone else chips in. Why should you be exempt?" That line, that single sentence ignited everything. What she didn't understand was that by blocking my driveway, she had started a sequence that would cost her far more than a patch of concrete. She thought she'd gained the upper hand. She had no idea I was about to flip the script in a way she'd never recover from. Karen finally shifted her SUV after I threatened to call a tow truck, but not before offering one last smirk. The kind that declares victory even when you're clearly in the wrong. I went to work, but the scene replayed in my head all day. By evening, she doubled down. An official HOA notice stuck to my front door. It was laughable. Not even a legal notice, just printer paper with a logo and a list of petty infractions. Grass a fraction too long. Trash cans briefly visible from the curb. And my personal favorite, lack of community spirit. That night, I started digging into Karen's past. If she wanted to treat neighborhood life like a chess game, I needed to know my opponent's weaknesses. The deeper I went, the more brittle her so-called empire appeared. Karen wasn't merely the HOA president. She was living well beyond what her bank account could support. That gleaming SUV, that renovated kitchen, the backyard pool that seemed to undergo a fresh upgrade every year. All of it was financed. The house she lorded over was far from free and clear. Public property records showed a sizable mortgage and a history of refinancing, cash-out loans to bankroll her queen lifestyle. The more I read, the clearer it became. Her payments were only marginally current. One unexpected expense, one missed payment, and the bank would be at her door. When I discovered that, things snapped into focus. Blocking my driveway had been the final provocation. Finding out about her financial fragility gave me leverage. I didn't want petty revenge for the sake of it. I wanted to dismantle the power she assumed she had over me. The chance appeared sooner than I imagined. A week later, her silver SUV was parked in my driveway again. This time, late at night, like she hoped persistence would wear me down. Instead of losing my temper, I stayed calm and methodical. It finally dawned on me that the SUV wasn't just a symbol of status. It was tied to a loan. And if she was willing to weaponize her vehicle against me, maybe it was time to turn her debts into the very thing that would topple her. The idea in my head wasn't just about teaching Karen a lesson. It was about striking where it would actually hurt. Her pride was wrapped up in her possessions, and I was about to take both away in one decisive strike. The very next morning, I stepped outside, and there it was. Karen's silver SUV still sprawled across my driveway like it owned the pavement. This time, I didn't bother asking her to move it. I pulled out my phone and made a call. Not to the cops, not even to a tow truck. Company, no. I called the bank that technically still held the title to her prized vehicle. The records had shown me everything. The SUV was financed and she was already behind on payments. That car wasn't truly hers. It was collateral, and the bank had every right to repossess it. When I explained to the repossession department what was happening, they were cautious at first. But once I gave them the VIN, clearly visible through the windshield, they started paying attention. "Sir, are you telling us this vehicle is blocking your private driveway?" the rep asked. I couldn't help but smile. "Yes, and the owner has repeatedly refused to move it." That was all the confirmation they needed. They checked her account, confirmed she was delinquent, and dispatched a repo truck that same day. By late afternoon, I heard the rumble of a tow truck echoing down the street. I leaned on my porch rail, coffee in hand as two men hopped out, secured her SUV, and began winching it up. That's when Karen came flying out of her house. Hair in chaos, robe flapping, shrieking like they were kidnapping her firstborn. "That's my car." "You can't take it!" she wailed. The repo driver didn't even flinch. He handed her the paperwork calmly. "Ma'am, you're behind on payments. Until you're current, this vehicle belongs to the bank." The look on her face was unforgettable. The queen of the HOA was stripped of her crown in plain sight. She whipped around to face me, eyes burning. "You did this. You called them," she spat. I didn't deny it. I just sipped my coffee and said, "Now you know what it feels like when someone takes something that doesn't belong to them." For the first time since I'd known her, Karen had no words. The truck disappeared down the street with her SUV, leaving her standing barefoot in the driveway, humiliated. Neighbors peeked from behind blinds, some even stepping outside to witness the downfall. But I wasn't finished, because as crushing as losing her car was, I knew there was something even more devastating looming over her. That massive mortgage, the one she had refinanced again and again, barely treading water. And I knew the bank wouldn't stay patient forever. She had chosen the wrong neighbor to push, and I wasn't about to let her forget it. For a few weeks after the repo, Karen kept her head low. She walked to her precious HOA meetings, no longer cruising up in her shiny SUV. The swagger was gone, but only temporarily. Within a month, she was at it again, stuffing fake notices into my mailbox, accusing me of weeds that didn't exist, once more demanding that I do the right thing and join the HOA. It was laughable. She'd lost her car and she still clung to the illusion of control. That's when I decided to finish the job. The mortgage records I had dug up showed the truth. Karen wasn't just behind on her car loan. She was months behind on her house payments, too. Public filings revealed foreclosure warnings already stacking up. All it needed was a push. So I gave one. I contacted her mortgage lender, presenting myself as a concerned neighbor. I shared everything I had uncovered. Her reckless spending, her harassment of other residents, even her questionable use of HOA funds for community improvements that somehow always upgraded her own property. Whether they believed every word or not didn't matter. It raised alarms, and when I showed them copies of her home, equity line of credit that she had no way of repaying, it was like tipping the first domino. Within weeks, foreclosure proceedings were underway. Karen panicked, tried to rally her HOA to defend her, but the neighbors she had bullied for years weren't interested in saving her. They watched silently as the woman who once lorded over them started to crumble. The final blow came on a Saturday morning. A moving truck arrived at her house, not unloading furniture but hauling it out. Karen stood in her front yard, barking orders at the movers, trying desperately to maintain her image. But everyone knew the bank had taken back her home just as it had claimed her SUV. I stood on my porch, coffee mug in hand, watching the last of her empire fall apart. Karen glanced at me one final time. No sunglasses, no clipboard, no smug grin, just pure defeat. She had tried to control me by blocking my driveway, and in the end, I had taken from her the two things she valued most, her car and her house. The same possessions that once made her feel untouchable were gone. Poetic justice paid in full, one overdue slip at a time. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more outrageous HOA and Karen tales, don't forget to hit subscribe, drop a like for that sweet taste of revenge, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my shoes? Your support helps me bring you even more wild stories just like this one.